I did. Silly me. Hang on. Oh, I'm sorry. I just walked away from you for like 10 minutes. Ugh. Boy, I'm silly. I'm good. Sorry, I thought for some reason in my head I was in studio mode when I did that. Oh, I don't need that. Hang on. Now I'm all flustered because I've screwed up already. Okay. Let's see. So, I'm not drinking anything bubbly today. I've gone for American talk show host style. It's in a mug, but it's tea, so it should be in a mug. I'll be drinking water later. And then you get to see, this is a color-changing Minecraft mug. I'm very excited about it. I wish it were bigger. Why do they keep making mugs this small? Who actually wants a mug this size? All the rest of my mugs are at least, like, 50% larger. The ones I use regularly are twice as big. Some good peppermint tea. Let's see. Where are we? What's new? What's going on? What's going on with you, Rick? You've been, a busy bee with all of your world building. Getting ready for that new campaign of ours. Very exciting. It's called The Last Post. It's sort of a 5e adaptation of B2 Keep at the Borderlands. Yeah, it's really exciting. We only just had our first session yesterday. Character creation was really amusing. Aaron Sorkin clips and hating yourself. Why do you hate yourself? I'm not actually, and I know this is maybe, especially for someone who loves screenwriting like I do, it's not a favorite opinion of people's that I don't really like Aaron Sorkin. I'm a bit of a rebel, I guess. But I don't like screenwriting that relies too heavily on dialogue. I don't like script writing in general that relies heavily on dialogue, so I get really mad at plays that are all dialogue based. And I don't like Aaron Sorkin, and I don't like Quentin Tarantino. I like Quentin Tarantino's ideas. I don't like his execution. Yeah, that's my opinion. So when I write scripts, I write them sparsely. And then people get mad at me, or they don't understand what I'm doing. Yeah, Tarantino has quite the reputation for that. Yeah. So what have I done in the last 2 weeks? I bought some new curtains that I'm looking at right now, in the hopes that it would improve my audio quality. And I think it has. Can you see? I can't easily pick up my webcam and move it around, so unfortunately, no. They're just like a white knit curtain with rings, instead of tabs or pencil pleats. I hate pencil pleats. I think they look messy. Yeah, it's nothing exciting. I wanted something calming and not dark, because if I were to ever paint this room, but we might be moving out of it in a year, so don't think I'm going to bother painting it. But if I do paint this room, instead of the lavender you see there, it's probably going to be more of like a sage green, like a spa color. That's what I like in my study. Calming things. Because I get really hyped up when I'm working, stressed out. Yeah, sage green is a really good color. Do you have any like favorite room colors? Like, do you have any colors that you would specifically paint a type of room? I think when we moved into this house, the bedroom was already painted gray, and I've never tried that before. And I actually really, really like it. So it's kind of a light to middle gray. It's not very pale, and it's a warm gray. And I kind of feel like I'm really into the concept of a warm gray as a neutral color, and I've thought that maybe a lounge would do really well and a sort of really pale warm gray, because with a warm gray you could do almost anything with your decor in the house. You can have warm colors, you can have cool colors. It works really well as a backdrop for anything. None of this what do you call it? Almond, or what is the brown color that everyone uses called? And I've completely forgotten what it is. Duck green fatigue. Interesting. Magnolia, that's the one, which isn't the color of any magnolia I've ever seen in my life. But it is the color everyone uses, and they call it neutral, and it's a real jerk about decorating your house when you rent, because obviously you can't repaint things. Duck green. I'm not sure I can quite picture a duck green as opposed to a duck blue. I suppose it's kind of, I mean, I know I've seen duck eggs that were green, or goose eggs maybe. Was it? Okay. I can't imagine it's a terribly unpleasant color. The color I've seen duck eggs when they're green is kind of like a muddy green color, though. I'd have to see it on a wall, I think. Yeah, overplayed. A lot of stuff gets overplayed. There's not a lot of sense of originality in your average decoration these days, is there? Okay. So, yeah, the funny thing about the curtains was, I got them really quickly. I got them 2 days after the last stream. And then I had to pull out my desk to get at the window in order to clean it. I haven't cleaned it in 6 years. So that was fun. Lots of spider webs to like move out of the way. And one whole spider that I didn't see right away and nearly touched and then jumped away from screaming. But it took me forever to get the window ready to put the curtains up because things kept building up. Like I thought, oh, well, you know, I'm behind the desk, so I need to clean the window. And then I thought, oh, well, if I'm going to clean the window, then I'm going to really clean the window. And then I thought, oh, well, if I'm going to clean the window, then I'm going to put in the weather stripping. And it just built up like that. And then I go to hang the curtain rod and my screwdriver is broken. So I had to go borrow someone's drill. It took me like a week just to put up a curtain rod. So, a lot of effort put into that. Oh well, what are you gonna do? It's nice. And I think it helps, right? I'll find out when I watch myself back later. Yeah. Blast those fates. Okay, where are we at? Double check my... See, I do this, let me switch here. Boop. I do this every day that I stream. I put up a little post on the world building subreddit. And try to start a discussion on something pertaining to what I'm going to stream tonight. And this was about using real world models of government to describe your setting government. Just interested in, because we two streams ago we talked about Mimini City's government. And I had looked up these different government, words and models and what they meant, and tried to decide if this were the real world, what government would this be described as? But in thinking about Nillynhold, I'm not sure there's a type of government didn't come to mind really quickly. So I started thinking about, well, actually, what about the governing structure of a company? But then my natural instinct was to go back and, after I built it around this, then go back and see if I could find a model of governance to that would also fit it. No, not like a guild, like an actual corporate, like a business. So there's a CEO, a COO, a CFO, a CTO, and even a board in this case. Yeah, you are obsessed with guilds. Yeah, most real world guilds that I'm aware of, and I suppose the only type I'm really aware of is Potters Guilds, because growing up my parents are both potters. Is very, very flat structure. It's a bit like clubs and societies at university, where you've got, like, president, secretary, treasurer, and then AGMs. But with a company, you've got someone who is at the absolute top, and then you've got like a rank of a small number of people who both act as advisors to the main guy who makes big picture decisions, but then also run their own little divisions fairly independently from the one big guy. And then you've also got a board that sort of watches alongside and has like kind of almost veto power. Again, I've never gone to business school, so my awareness of how this works is very popular culture based. But I think everyone has some basic, really simple basic understanding of how a company is structured in real life. So I thought it was kind of a good analogy to give to people. But I am aware that I'm a writer. And that means to me that there are a lot of things that I have learned out of a wandering sense of curiosity that I don't think a lot of people ask of their reality in their world. Design space. Okay. You mean you think that things could be changed? Like there are ways to improve on that? Yeah. Well, conflict. Well, that is a really good question. This was in the sense of like social governance. The shareholders are the actual people, or I mean, okay, if you're thinking little definition of a shareholder, it's someone who benefits from the activities of an organization but isn't directly tied to it. Isn't necessarily directly tied to it, because you can be both a shareholder and be directly associated. And I think in a lot of capitalist-based societies, that is very much an economical thing. So if you have a society that is very capitalist, which a lot of fantasy settings are very capitalist, then it would make sense that, say, your shareholders in like Faerun would be politicians and merchants, which is more or less exactly what they are in the real world. I'm not sure that applies to Kinde. Kinde is very much not a capitalist society. I don't think they have a concept of money. They know it exists because the elves what are probably capitalists. A magic upper class? I'm not seeing the implication of how that class would benefit from an organization. What's a magic share? Expand. I'd love to hear more of this. This sounds really interesting. Got some really good posts on this though. Best one so far. I love this. This is hilarious. Totally not only that, but I also took direct inspiration from real world medieval countries. I literally have a document saying brackets name of country in my setting equals brackets raid world country, real world country it's based off of. Sometimes I don't even try to be subtle about it. Could Pisengard be anything else other than Pisa? And then there's a little foreign language gag in here that I absolutely adore. Pisa merda. Which, in Italian, because Pisa's in Italy, in Italian, merda, it means shit. But then the word Pisa sounds like piece of in English. So that's quite a little interracial pun. I'm sorry. I'm such a nerd. I wish I could give two extra karma for that, just for that joke. Wait, I'm gonna say that. Hang on. There we go. Okay. Alright, we're done with Reddit. Go away, Reddit. Where are we at? Okay, we're working on Nillynhold's government. Okay. My question is, when you're writing a player's guide, does it make sense to just straight up say, my fantasy settlement is governed in the same way that a corporate company that's redundant. The company is governed in the real world. I feel like that would be not immersive, but it's a meta document anyway. Do I need to be immersive? I know I want to be immersive, but is it necessary? Like, if someone asks me about it, I like to be able to fling that out there, but we looked at these guys. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. You definitely can be too subtle. I have met plenty of players who need to be hit over the head with a brick in order to get what you're laying down. Which is disappointing. But not everybody has that kind of mind. So, I mean, you can't really blame them. Right? Exactly. Come on, people. Just think outside of the box. Everything has meaning. Okay. So, last stream, we went through this list of people. And these are the people who I think have some kind of position in governance. Except maybe Rounder. I think she's more of she's a contractor. She doesn't actually work for the company. I'm just gonna run with this analogy because it works. So at the top, you've got Lord Guntav, who is the CEO. And then you have underneath him, you have Mick, who would be the Chief Operations Officer. The COO, he's the Captain of the Assembly. Then you've got the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, Ruin, who is a member of the Governor's Guild, was a merchant of some kind. And then you have, let's see, who else? Then you've got your CTO, your Chief Technical Officer, which is Charm. She is the shipwright. She is in charge of the main technology that Nillynhold is known for, the Nillynhold's brand. And then you've got off on the side here, probably some people who work underneath. Would they work underneath Charm, technically? I suppose if we're thinking literal company governance, they would probably be underneath Charm. But quite possibly logging and stone quarrying are more of an operations thing. More of the thing that you need in order to make the stuff that you really do work better. Administrators almost. Maybe they're just more. Maybe these minions, these 3 minions. That's from the little template that we used to give these people names and jobs. That on this template are minions, and our specials are more likely to be contractors than a part of the actual executive level. So, in actual practice in Nillynhold, what you've got here is a settlement that has a lord who's in charge of everything, who's in charge of the big picture, makes a lot of big decisions, has to be consulted every time any major kind of work goes on. For instance, if Charm wants to build a new type of ship, Charm probably needs to run that schematic by Lord Guntav and say, this is what I want to do, this is why, etc. And Guntav will give the go-ahead. But if Guntav wants to make another skiff, or sorry, if Charm wants to make another skiff, Charm does not bother Lord Guntav with it. With Mick, Mick runs the day-to-day operations of the assembly by himself. He, moves the patrols around based as necessary. He, schedules people on his own. He holds some kind of what do you call it? Like not tribunal, but some sort of like judgment service, a stewarding service that happens every day. He runs all of that by himself. He picks his own staff. But for instance, if he thinks that he needs to completely rework what the pattern of patrols is, like where everyone is stationed. If he thinks, for instance, that a palisade needs to be moved, if he has a special project that he wants to work on, say for instance, like when Rounder was hired to spy on the local bandit groups, he would have brought that up to Lord Guntav in a meeting, all of those things, and said, I want to keep tabs on the bandits. I know this guy, or girl, person. He would have said, while also being in the meeting with Gareth Wood, I think we need to move this palisade. And Guntav would say, well, I don't know, that sounds like a good idea to me. What do you think, Gareth? They have these kinds of meetings. It's a bit like a council where pretty much all of these people get together on a regular basis and discuss their business. Oh, I've got more messages. I can't. How does anyone avoid checking all the things that ding at them? Drives me a little bonkers. I want to see what everybody's saying. Fun to find a way to get the players involved. and governance. Oh yeah, I mute things all the time. In fact, Discord automatically mutes itself when you're streaming. I mean, I don't mind looking at this stuff while I'm streaming because it's about the stream. What governance is a source of ideas, especially unusual ones. Constitutions and political strategies are the most entertaining. Ooh, somebody who likes writing constitutions. I don't think I could manage writing constitutions. That seems like way over the top to me. But more power to them. Ooh. If I have to use 3 different adjectives to even vaguely describe the form of government when I'm done, that's fine with me. 3 adjectives? No, no, no. No adjectives. Oh. He doesn't understand what joke I was complimenting him on. Oh, I'll get back to those later. They're not important. I like that people are actually talking to me this time. In previous ones, they didn't really get into it. I think I've done something right with this Reddit post. I love strategizing, like, the content of my posts and things to actually get people to talk to you better. Okay, let's go back to what we're doing. Adjectives are wrong. You shouldn't need an adjective. You need strong nouns and strong verbs. If you feel like you have to use if you have to feel like you use, well, if you feel like you have to use more than one adjective, you need to work on your vocabulary. Use that thesaurus. Brooding or grim? I don't know. I'll tell you what, I like to play characters in Rick's campaigns that emote more than they talk. And I really need to have like a list of different words for smiles. Different words for brooding. I have a character who's very much a brooder. And then I had a character who's very much a smiler. That's what I should do. I should like write up a list on a sticky note so that whenever I'm playing one of Rick's campaigns, I have my sticky note of synonyms for smiling and synonyms for brooding. There's a lot of nodding in one of Rick's campaigns, especially when I was playing with just Liam and Chris. We would all just kind of like nod at each other in a circle and then move on without talking. All right. Where are we going? Back here. Back to Nillynhold. Government. Like company governance. So Guntav equals CEO. Mick equals COO. Charm equals CTO. What was the other one? CFO. That's who was that ruin equals CFO. What other executive positions are there that I'm missing? Those are the main ones I can think of. Cooled off version of this mug. Love it. Little diamond tools. It's great. No, I've got CTO. There's no... That's CFO that you're thinking of. Anyone who does money is financial officer. CTO is technical officer. Technology officer, I mean. The mug is from Aldi. In their middle aisles, they like to have some branded stuff lately. They've done Minecraft, they've done Harry Potter, and some other like very kiddie kinds of stuff. I don't like that the gaming stuff is, or the Harry Potter stuff is like exclusively children's things, but I have no shame. So no, I have a lot of shame. I don't have a shame about my gaming nerdiness. Did you find it? I've been tempted to try and seek out a larger Minecraft based mug. One that's more than, this is like 250 ml. Company governments. So regular council meetings. And let's see, let's go back to let's get this list back. Our list of people. There we go. This is what's fun about Scrivener. Okay. Who am I missing? Mick, Ruin, Ricknos. So, Ricknos, Gareth, and Rounder are contractors. Combat Board of Directors. So, excuse me. In my mind, the triad is the board of directors. Because the triad is the main governing body of the whole region. What's Troika? You have to understand, I'm not really on top of pop culture. Normal everyday pop culture. Nerdy pop culture I'm good with. It means the same thing as what? I'm confused. So in my mind, oh, I see. Okay. Huh. When I think of a triad, I think of 3 separate organizations that work together for a similar purpose. So you could separate the triad and you still have 3 fully functioning organizations. Whereas like a triumvirate is just any body that's made up of 3 people. Any governing body that's made up of 3 people. I think of 3 like human people when I think of a triumvirate. Like judges. Huh. Hey, I know what's fun. Let's do some Googling. Triumvirate thesaurus. Threesome sign up there. Troika. Yeah. Okay. Triads up there as well. Triptych is 3 things, 3 somethings, 3 ideas that share a common theme. Turnian. See if I can get definition of Turnian. Triptych is a very interesting word indeed. Stop giving me that. Oh, it's going to the dictionary. A set or group of three. Okay. It's just an interesting word. Latin based. Let's go back to Troika. Let's see. A Russian carriage. It does have a sort of Northeastern Eurasian, Eastern Europe sound to it. Troika. Group of 3 persons, nations, etc. 3 horses driven abreast. What kind of horse-driven vehicle uses 3 abreast? That's very interesting. Must be some kind of Russian. Yes, yeah. Well, it says right here, carriage, wagon, or sleigh drawn by a team of 3 abreast. So obviously. Okay. Oh, we had our little thesaurus fun. So what does a board of directors do? No. See, now I'm going to bring this back. And we're going to Google that. See, I can Google things now without breaking the stream. And I'm going to take full advantage of that. Oh, it's going slow. There we go. That's not the kind of article I wanted. It's just Wikipedia everything. It's usually the first place I ever go when I want like an overview of something. When I want to like figure out what it is I don't know about a topic. I like Wikipedia for that a lot. Jointly supervise the activities of an organization with... Yeah. Powers, duties, and responsibility are determined by the government and regulations and the organization's own constitution and bylaws. Authorities specify numbers, how often they meet. You could potentially say the board of directors is actually the 8 lords because they meet every 8 years. They have their lords moot. And they discuss everything. But to be honest, the other 7 lords don't really have any jurisdiction with what goes on in one of the lorddoms. Corporate stock art. You mean like stock art photos of people in collared shirts looking at laptops at a conference table? Voting members accountable to full membership. So it's kind of like the board of directors is representative of the larger group of shareholders. So they might not have direct control over how a company does things, but they can say, for instance, fire a CEO, can't they? Which gives them quite a lot of power. Okay, this does sound a lot like the triad. The triad is an intention. The triad's intention is to be sort of a an unelected senatorial body, whereas they're meant to be representative of human society's goals and desires and quality of life and all of that sort of thing. Okay. So I think that part of the analogy holds. The thing about the triad is, even though they're unelected, you can always, if you want to have more influence on how things work, you join one of the triad organizations and then you work your way up the ranks. Obviously, the higher up in one of those three guilds, those three organizations, the more power you have to make decisions. Ooh, sorry. I only had half a night's sleep last night because I'm in a maelstrom of Robin Hobb novels and I can't stop. I can't put them down to go to sleep. So I'd made myself only get half a night's sleep last night so that I don't keep getting up really late. So please excuse the yawn. Regular council meetings. I think Ryknos and Gareth are regulars, but Rounder only as needed. Charm, Mick, and Ruin are largely autonomous. So, for instance, everyday running of things. But big things need discussion with Guntav and the others, because I think the others have, valuable input on how, Charm might be developing the docks, the area in which ships are built. That would be quite important to both Gareth and Ryknos. Gareth. Oh, get DS9 on the mind. It could be fun to design the council chambers, yeah. I still haven't gotten around to designing the keep. I'm still working on how the town itself is laid out. I need more I need to do some more research on how early figurative maps were drawn. Like what the theories and ideas and what content they included was in it. Because I think that's the kind of map that I'd like to draw for a city in this particular setting. Everything is so low tech. And everyone is so unfamiliar with the world around them that the maps that are primarily in use are the ones that were drawn quickly as general sort of guides. More like, where things are in relation to each other, as opposed to giving really finite, concrete information about a place. I've been doodling for ages, different things having to do with Nillynhold. I found a little image. Let's see if I can open it up here. With one of my doodles. Where is it? Where are you? There you are. Trying to figure out the basic structure of Nillynhold and where everything is. What goes where. No, I think you really need hard maps, especially in the type of game that we run, Rick. We don't run wargaming games. We don't run technical combats. We run games where you don't need to know exactly where everything is all the time. I hope I didn't just break the stream by trying to own GIMP, trying to run GIMP right now. Yeah, that's what I think that leads to. Oh, that didn't help. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that I've been doodling. So, this is the bay. And you've got the terraces in the side of the bay leading up to the hill. And then back here you've got the river on the other side of the ridge that the stronghold is on. The river is diverted into some kind of sewage system here. Although you can see that... No. Yeah. Yeah, I closed you. Okay, hang on. My, scaling is not very good right now. That's the landmass sketch. Oh, I see. Okay, so if you just look at this bit, and we up the opacity. Oh, GIMP is super slow while I'm streaming. Have I broken it? I haven't broken the stream. Just broken GIMP is all. Oh, this is the one that's... That's better. So if this is the bay, this is the ridge to the east. Stronghold is here. You've got the river that goes out to the other side of this. What do you call that? Outcropping. And then there's a diversion of the river to be used for irrigation. This was something that they uncovered as they were sort of digging up or clearing out the bay. So the first flight arrives in this bay that they're gonna turn into Nillynhold, and they discover that actually 2,000 years ago somebody had already built a town there. So they're finding the tiers, they're finding some of that infrastructure. They're finding sewers and irrigation. And so they, you know, they also found like the base of the stronghold. So they based a lot of what they do with Nillynhold on what they already found that someone else had done. I think there's got to be a lorddom who's... Where'd you go, GIMP? There you are. There's got to be a lorddom whose job is archaeology. I think that's definitely got to be a thing. I wouldn't call them canals. I think it would be over-aggrandizing what they are. It's more like a sewage system. And field irrigation. Which I suppose you might call them canals, but when they're only like 6 foot wide, it's a bit much to use that term. Let's see what else. No, the fields are all actually north of the city. In the place where it used to be an encampment, which is at the top of the slope that leads down to the cove. So it's like a bowl or an amphitheater, like I described, with tiers, and then there's a top level or sort of a hill at the top of the bowl that leads further north, and into a sort of shallow valley that goes then into the foothills of the nameless mountain. And it's at the top of that hill, at the top edge of the bowl, that the first flight had their first encampment and where they started growing things. So yeah, there's a lot of, and you can actually walk to the river from their encampment. But I suppose you could also say that in each little like group of houses, like in the courtyards of, I suppose, the post-occupation equivalent of a caste ward, where you have these large, long houses sort of built into geographic, what's the word? Squares and circles and triangles. Geometric organizations that leave like little courtyards. That they would probably put gardens, like vegetable gardens and things like that. So there's a large sense of self-sustainability. I don't think anyone builds, certainly not early on, I don't think anyone has built a property without incorporating some kind of gardening into it for the purpose of feeding themselves. It might just be the more intensive types of farming that would have fields north of Nillynhold, so grains. What else requires that kind of space? Potatoes, I suppose. You get really into potatoes and cabbages. They take up a lot of space. Or you just eat a ridiculous amount of them, like we do with potatoes. Yeah, things that don't fit well into an allotment. Cabbage is one of those. Grains, any type of grain. Oats, wheat, corn, sweet corn. Where do I know these things from? No effing clue. Oh well. I mean, I have a huge interest in self-sustainability because I would like someday to live in a smallholding. That's my goal for by the time I turn 50. Is to have bought a smallholding. But my cousins who were farmers, I grew up in the Midwest of America where there's just a lot of farming going around all the time. So I must have picked it up somewhere. smallholding, homestead. You could think of it as a really small scale non-profit farm whose purpose is really just survival, self-sustainability. I'm a hippie at heart, so I have extreme interests in living off-grid and growing my own food. Big into permaculture. I have a little permaculture experiment going on in my back garden right now, with some heavy interplanting. I don't know how it's going to work. Never done it before. I'm excited. I love the idea of just like scattering a bunch of seeds and throwing some dirt over it and walking away. Chickens and goats. Oh my god. Graham is my best friend now. Although I think I might lean more towards ducks than chickens, but I like chickens. Chickens are great. Geese are awful. Turkeys are even worse. I can't stand turkeys. I had to watch someone's turkeys once for a week, and it was horrible. They're just terrifying. They're actually half as tall as you, and they've got really sharp beaks, and their faces are all, like, weird, and they don't like you, and they've got feet that are as big as your hand, and they have really sharp claws on them. Turkeys are the worst. Geese are just mean, badly behaved, shit on everything. Ducks are cute, though. They eat all the slugs. And all of your vegetables, so you have to watch them for that. Yeah. Poultry are a mixed bag. They really are. Yes, yeah. Ducks and geese are great for eating slugs, actually. The slugs are usually too big for chickens. They're more like mealworm size eaters. But, yeah. Well, that's a tangent. I'm just trying to think about how this central government ties in with the people. How do they get their say? There's got to be some kind of village hall situation. Led by Mick? I feel like as the captain of the assembly, Nillynhold's assembly, that he's definitely got to be the person who runs the village hall. What else? What do we say? Maybe some reference to the mechanics of the first flight? Why does the triad have to listen to the people? I'm not sure that really factors in terribly much to Nillynhold specifically. But it's a good question. Why do they have to? I don't think they do. We're talking about a really, really, really new form of government. It's less than 25 years old. So I'm fully on board with them not having figured out how to game the game yet. Not having figured out what power is yet and how to get it. There's I was sort of mentally equating them to like teenagers who've just left the house. But you're always going to get that young person who's just an asshole because they like the instant gratification of it. being an asshole has really quick, really tangible results. So it would be logical if there are definitely some assholes in the triad. So what keeps them from breaking everything? I think it's just how flat the structure is. They don't have any tangible power, and being an asshole is not actually an effective way to gain and maintain any kind of power. It can make things happen. It can be gratifying to the asshole. But there's no sophistication in it. So they serve the people simply because they haven't figured out how to actually serve themselves yet. Properly serve themselves. This needs a theory document. Where are we going here? No, I need a new one. It's the question, why does the triad have to listen to people? Great question, Rick. Excellent question. And the answer is they don't. But they have they haven't figured out how to serve themselves yet. Plenty of instant gratification types. But they're not sophisticated enough to gain and maintain any, or no, to maintain any power they grabbed in the moment. No, I'm gonna put this up here. Government is only less than 25 years old. People only 50 years free to determine their own lives. Okay, I think that summarizes it. How are we doing? Okay, go back to Nillynhold. I think we've got to do a little bit more thinking about Ruin's job. Ruin themselves is a merchant. Oh. Ruins they. There we go. Ruin themselves. Is a merchant. So their expertise is in economics. But they're a member of the Governor's Guild, which manages both economics and governance in the sense of governance theory. They might not necessarily be, although I think we touched on this last stream as well, that Lord Gunthav must have been a member of the Governor's Guild. Must have come from the Governor's Guild. Did we didn't have any background here. Governor's Guild. Someone who... No, this is a son of someone who was witness to elven governance. I think this brings to mind the question of nepotism again. Is nepotism a thing? Do they have any sense of training? Nepotism is a thing in a capitalist society. But this isn't a capitalist society. So things I know. About Mimini City and the 8 lorddoms. Is that caste wards are largely family groups. And training would have been only what's necessary for a specific job the person would do for the rest of their lives. Training would be on the job. Apprenticeship style, but without the formal structure of whatever you call that structure of learning. That's very medieval in concept. See if we can't get some more information on that. Name for the apprenticeship model. Job training, study classrooms. Okay, I think this is in terms of modern apprenticeship. Let's see, historical. First developed in the later Middle Ages. Supervised by craft guilds and town governments, a master craftsman was entitled to employ young people. They began at 10 to 15, live in the household. There was a contract. The parents would be governed by an indenture? Not sure what that means. I don't know how that relates to the parents. Like, I always thought that, like, the apprentice was basically the indentured servant. No, I know what an indentured means. I just don't know how it applies to the parents of an apprentice as opposed to the apprentice themselves. Yeah, trust me, Americans all know what indentured means. That's how our country started. Indentured servitude. Okay. I actually need to be careful about making generalizations about Americans' knowledge of history that way, because, I mean, if any of these polls you find on the internet are right, people don't know some real basic stuff, and it's kind of terrifying. I'd really like to know who they're polling to find this stuff out, because everybody I know knows this shit. So why don't they? Oh, I think I'm peeking out a bit on my mic. Okay, let's see. It's not really like a single name for other than apprenticeship model. But the implication of apprenticeship model is that there's a formal structure. Like, you start as an apprentice, you become a journeyman, etc. There's no mention here of what the system used to be before the later Middle Ages. That would be nice. But no. Okay, where were we going with that? The medieval model. I'm just going to say the medieval model. Because we're talking about parents and their kids. So you've got, for instance, let's take a joinery cast. Okay. It's a cast that builds shelves. And you've got two people who work together every day. They took their what do you call it? Their assessment, that exam we were talking about last stream. Their aptitude exams. Long time ago, they stayed in the cast that they were already in, became shelf builders. They fell in love on the job. Nobody was nobody thought that no one was overseeing their breeding. So they got together, they had kids. Okay, let's say they had 3 kids. All 3 of those kids would go to work with them every day. And by what I mean by go to work was they'd all go to the courtyard where, to the place in their cast ward where shelves were being built. And as soon as the kids were big enough, they'd go with the parents. And at some point, say, I don't know, somewhere between the ages of 7 and 11, they took their aptitude exam. One of them had an aptitude for accounting. And so one of the 3 children was moved to another cast ward where they do accounting. 2 of those children have an aptitude for building shelves. So they stayed with their parents and they learned building shelves from their parents. Is that nepotism though? I don't think so. It's just circumstance. Unless a parent dies and a child becomes an orphan, or for instance, like the 3rd child of this hypothetical couple, gets moved to another cast ward because of their aptitude exam. It would be natural for them to learn from their own parents. Obviously, there's an option for them to learn to someone else if for some reason, like, you're like my family and we don't get along with our parents all terribly well. There's always someone else to learn from, but it's essentially family. The chances of you actually being related to the person that you're learning from are really high. Gosh, imagine the genetic similarities in years and years of generations and generations upon small cast wards breeding just with, small numbers of people and only having people removed or added to your genetic pool every so often. I think it would be hard to find someone who wasn't like a second cousin. So no formal structure would be necessary. There isn't a lot of complication involved in the different degrees of what a person would have to learn, because these cast wards are small enough that it's not just a joinery cast ward, it's a shelf building cast ward. So they only have to learn how to do a specific task. There's menial jobs for them to do while they're learning, most likely, sweeping, picking up sawdust, boring holes, things like that. The things you learn early on when you do joinery still exist. So they're apprentices in the sense that they do all the like basic shit really early on in their learning. I would agree that is definitely the case with the 3 human cities, the 3 elf human cities. Odevian and Calyrax likely have very physically different people. I'm personally imagining, and I think it would be really sort of interesting for this world, that one of the cities is going to have I don't know enough of the language here, so I'm sorry if I say anything that's wrong because I don't have anyone here to ask to help me with the language. But if you think I need to change some of the language that I'm using here, I'd really appreciate it if you commented or DM'd or something so that I can make improvements on that. But to me, one of the cities is definitely going to be black. Another city is going to be brown, and another city is going to be white, probably. I'm starting to think that maybe, when I say brown, I mean brown of some kind. There's lots of varieties of brown. I haven't given it more thought into that, other than I think there needs to be diversity in the world, and I think that the cities, because of being the humans all being stuck there for 2,000 years, they would all tend to look similar, and you would get a lot of the dominant genetic traits out of that. So if 2,000 years ago you build a city and most of the people who are even like just more than 50% of the people that you trap in that city are black, then in 2,000 years, pretty much everyone is going to be black if you're mixing the genetic pool within that city enough. Same goes for having, middle coloration skins, skin types. Brown hair, brown eyes, things like that. It would be hard to... The problem is that being white is actually one of the less dominant physical traits in a person, genetically speaking. That if you look at, I remember reading an article or watching a video on this, that that there is a correlation between, on one hand, what they found is that if you take pictures of thousands of people and you merge them all together to come up with one amalgamated human being, that person will be judged to be particularly beautiful. There's something about a person sharing all of those broad traits that makes them beautiful to the human eye. And then on the other hand, when you mix genetics racially, sorry. Oh, okay. I was getting pinged somewhere I wasn't expecting to be pinged, so I thought it was some kind of emergency situation. That's weird. Okay. So when you mix racial genetics, you get a person who is more in the middle of the melatonin scale, basically, because those darker colors tend to be dominant genetically. There is a correlation between that person who is the very beautiful amalgamation of photos of real people and what you get when you mix racial genetics a lot. And of course I got distracted, so I now can't remember where I was going with that, but I think that's a particularly interesting thing. But again, that person from the mixed racial genetics is going to be darker in color than people who only when your mix is only Caucasian or only blonde or only blue-eyed. So I'm actually thinking that a population that stayed white over 2,000 years would have to have been very dominantly white to begin with. Which I want to, because of my awareness of popular culture, say that culture is a northern culture. Because when I think of northern cultures and really pale people, I think about Scandinavians. And I think that's my perspective of a person living in the West. But I think the truth is actually that's not all that north. You go further north and you get people who have melatonin and lots of it. Yeah, very. So, I mean, I need to think. I know I've always wanted to have one of the cities be a city where the genetics are black. Another one be where the genetics are brownish. And one be slightly white, but I keep asking myself, is that something that would actually happen, that people would remain white? Have to be really high proportion of white people. So that's a thing that I definitely need to think about more. Put problems to solve. Why is one of the cities so white? But to your point, to your question about the castes themselves diverging genetically, I don't think that would happen because there is a lot of geographical separation, though, in this continent. It's a whole continent with only 3 cities in it, all at very different places on the map. But within the cities, the only genetic factor, the only attribute of a person that determines whether or not they stay in a caste is their aptitude for what that caste is already doing. Is there research on why we're good at the things that we do and whether or not that has a hereditary link? Maybe. Is there anything definitive? I highly doubt it. I think that is one of the great mysteries of the human mind. Why do some families have generations and generations of doctors and some families don't? I mean, obviously in our world, in the real world, in capitalism, a lot of that is socioeconomic. It's the nature versus nurture thing. So I think because the technical information is so the facts are so unavailable on this particular subject, I think that I would prefer to just say that because the aptitude test is the only qualifier for whether or not someone stays or goes within a caste ward, that no, I don't think the caste wards would diverge very much. I think that people would be moving around, generations would be moving around a lot. I imagine there's definitely some genetic experimentation that the elves were doing, for sure. Ooh, I just had a weird, disturbing idea. This is World War II level genetic ethics going on here, but potentially you could have the elves moving around people from their different cities in order to do genetic experimentation. Like, for instance, maybe they took some of the black people from Calyrax, move them into an experimental breeding program in Mimini. And there's maybe, a very small, very inbred, very traumatized population of people with a little bit extra melanin in them from Mimini City. Oh, that's so gross. Why do I love it, though? I mean, for the fiction of it, for the drama of it. I have to admit there's a level of fascination that I have for these people like, what's his name? Goebbels, and that Japanese guy. Who did lots of human experimentation in the early 20th century. Just like, how do you separate yourself from the humanity of it so much that ethically you can do the things that you do? I mean, if we're thinking in terms of like the villain trope that we have going on now that we're developing is that the villain thinks they're the good guy. What level of rationalization is there to people like these two fellows that makes them think that they're doing something so good that they can do something so horrible? Can you be both that detached and altruistic? Is that sort of where that's going? Altruism? Is that like the opposite of cutting people, vivisecting people? Giving people diseases and then watching them through a glass window? Yeah. This is why my channel is marked mature, folks. Okay. Why is one of the cities so white? It's an interesting question. It's one of the genetics is like one of the few things that I remember from biology classes in high school. I just found it so interesting that I think it was just the pure logic of genetics. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. That is very much a part of fascism. The idea that in order to do the right thing for the human race, you have to dehumanize people. I still think a large part of that is selfishness, is personal gratification. But yeah, there's definitely some, I think, logic to that logic. Okay, so we were talking about why the triad has to listen to people. They don't. I think there's still some novelty to the fact that people are being listened to at all. So everyone's a little bit oh, what's the analogy? What's the person? Is that the Sally Mae or the Susie Q, or what is that analogy? I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, everyone's sort of looking at the world with rose-tinted glasses. I'm full of metaphors and idioms right now. I'm sorry. And I'm also terrible with them. I'm not sure I need to really say in this particular section of the player's guide about how everybody's a bit rosy-eyed right now. How do they maintain power? Because no one's challenging it. It's a system that is essentially created by the people in the Market Square talks. So, I mean, 25 years on, no one's really challenging it. And the people who have the most power to challenge it is that group that I call the philosophers, which are not actually directly associated to the triad. The Paris Commune. What is that? What is the Paris Commune? That seems like something that needs Googling. A radical socialist, anti-religious, and revolutionary government that ruled Paris. Okay, so this is post-revolution. The Franco-Prussian War led to the capture of Napoleon, collapse of the Second French Empire, beginning of the Third Republic. Paris was under siege for months. 4 months. Tour. Contemplative, working class radicalism. Defended by radical troops, National Guard. Surrendered to the Prussians. This is actually a really terrible introduction to this document. It doesn't actually say what the Paris Commune was in summary. It just lists. It's like a summary of the timeline, which is not what should be in an introduction on anything. I mean, I get that it's history, but come on, people. History is more than dates. That is story in my life. I love history. I mean, I'm world building. I love this kind of shit so much. But I did not get on with history classes because I cannot remember a list of dates to save my life. I would literally die yesterday if it was based on me remembering a series of random numbers like dates. Just can't do it. I wasn't very good with biology either because it was a lot of isolated information. I'm really good with things that I can tie together logically. That I can fit into a pattern. But dates? No way. So all I've got here is that it was radical socialist, anti-religious, and revolutionary government. So what is it you were that made you think it was like that? Oh, it's a wall of text. Can't. I might read this later. It just sounds vaguely interesting. And quite related to what's going on in Kinde because, or Wadaluna anyway. Because of the sort of complete destruction of the government that existed before it. So I will probably most likely have a read on this or do a little bit of research on the subject. But I can't read it now while we're on stream because that's boring. Anarchist form of government. That feels like a contradiction to me. Anarchist form of government. I think to me it gives me the impression of more like clean slate government. Get rid of all of the ideologies that we have and start from nothing. And that's definitely what I'm doing with or how this is evolving is, I mean, that's the basis of what's going on in Wadaluna, is they have no assumptions. So they maintain power because no one is challenging it. They what was it that we and they have to listen to people because well, they don't have to listen to people, but they've just not figured out how to game the game. So maybe this is enough. I think this is probably enough to finish Nillynhold. It just suddenly occurred to me that I think a lot of the assumptions that we come to when we're world building are based on the rule systems that we currently live in today, such as capitalism and democracy, and those sorts of things. And I think what intrigues me the most about this world that I'm building is that none of those things exist yet, not among the humans. To some, I mean, well, no, you can't say it's complete vacuum of ideologies. But because you have people who do work with the elves and do something, they see how things work with them, and that's how you get the Governor's Guild. But I think this question of the blank slate, of the no assumptions, I think it's good to constantly be questioning that. I think that's very good. I shouldn't make assumptions about there being assumptions, otherwise I'm not doing what I set out to do in this world building. But I think that it reminds me of the concept of like social engineering, is that level of sophistication in social interaction, in that you can recognize what the assumptions are, what the ideologies are that are in play, but you can also recognize what it is that people are just like. Things that we take for granted, that we don't look at, and you can then, I hesitate to use the word manipulate, but it does work here. You can organize the situation around you based on that interplay of what we think things are like and what things are actually like. And I think for Wadaluna, it's really important to keep to constantly test the waters for what things are really like, as opposed to what we think things are like. I'm getting muddled up there, but this is a concept. Social engineering is a concept that I'm absolutely fascinated with, that I think that I personally could use lots more understanding of. That's a part of my neurodivergence, is not being able to fully understand what people are actually like. You think the elves were heavily into social engineering? Why do you think that? They were definitely into, I mean, for there was with your particular example, they were definitely into social design. So I think they wanted to make things. They made things in the way that they thought would be beneficial. They engineered. What did they engineer? I think that might be more in the sort of literal definition, the literal definition of what social engineering is. And it's one of those phrases that I think there's a bit of a gap between what the literal definition of social plus engineering is and what the phrase social engineering means in practice, which is not... Are you going to get me bogged down in the meanings of words and things now? I'm not sure that applies. What your example is, I'm not sure that applies as social engineering. To me, that is more about ideology and structures of power, rather than working with the base nature of people. Does that make sense? I don't think castes are about the base nature of people, except in perhaps the meta sense, or the what am I looking at? That was the projection of it. I definitely see elves as being a people of systems, of politics, and I mean, to me, it strikes me as the elves are the fantasy equivalent of white people in the Western world. We're obsessed with our structures and our rules and our systems for things, and our governments just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And now we're getting into some of my personal politics here, which I don't know if is healthy. But yeah, I think that's definitely, I see them being quite ideology heavy, elves. Whereas I think in social engineering situations, you have to be aware of the ideologies and the rules and the systems in order to effectively social engineer someone. But social engineering tends to feed on base human things. Yeah, elf supremacist. That's right. Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, it's past 10. And this has been a very serious, deep discussion on government and genetics and race. And I've really enjoyed it. So thank you everyone for watching. My Twitter again is Tempest TT Games. I stream every other Wednesday right here at 8 p.m. British summertime, or well, when it's that we'll be done with summertime soon. Anyway, have a great fortnight and thanks for coming. Bye.